You open a full fridge and still say, "There's nothing to eat." Now imagine saying that 50,000 years ago. No app, no pantry, no backup plan waiting in the freezer. Just a cold evening, a tired group, and hunters walking back to camp with empty hands. No deer, no rabbit, no dramatic victory around the fire. For us, an empty fridge is annoying. For ancient humans, an empty hunt could change the whole night. It could mean weaker bodies tomorrow, hungry children, and one urgent question. What can this place give us today? So what did ancient humans eat when there was nothing to hunt? Ancient humans were not living inside an action movie. They were not catching giant animals every day. Hunting mattered, but it was risky, tiring, and often unsuccessful. A group could track an animal for hours and return with only scratches, sweat, and frustration. This is where the boring foods became heroic. The foods that saved people were often small, quiet, and easy to ignore. Roots, tubers, berries, nuts, seeds, eggs, insects, shellfish, fish, honey, leaves, and anything else the group knew was safe enough to chew. That last part matters. Safe enough. Because ancient eating was not just about hunger, it was about knowledge. In many hunter-gatherer societies, gathering was not a weak backup plan. It was the steady base. Anthropologists who studied groups like the Hadza in Tanzania, including Frank Marlowe and Alyssa Crittenden, found that wild plant foods could provide a major share of daily calories. Meat mattered, but finding plants, digging tubers, collecting berries, and recognizing edible foods mattered just as much. That changes the whole picture. When you imagine an ancient dinner, you may picture a man dragging a huge animal back to camp. Everyone cheers. The fire glows. Meat fills the night. But many real nights were probably less cinematic. Someone found eggs. Someone dug up starchy roots. Someone cracked nuts with a stone. Someone brought back berries. Someone found shellfish near water. Someone knew where insects gathered under bark. One good memory could feed people. One wrong bite could make the whole group remember forever. Ancient humans had to read the landscape the way modern humans read a screen. Nature did not offer a menu. Nature offered clues. A tree full of fruit meant one thing. Fresh tracks meant another. Disturbed soil might hide roots. Birds flying low might point toward water. A certain smell might mean honey nearby. And they had to remember everything. Which plant made someone sick last season? Which berry was safe only when ripe? Which root needed cooking? Which shellfish was easier to collect at low tide? Which insects were worth the effort? Which places became dangerous after sunset? This was not simple luck. It was a living database carried inside the group. Ancient humans did not sort food like a supermarket. Their categories were probably closer to safe, unsafe, seasonal, worth the walk, better cooked, and do not touch that again. One of the biggest hidden foods was starch. Popular culture often imagines early humans as mostly meat-eaters, but researchers such as Amanda Henry have studied ancient dental calculus, the hardened plaque left on old teeth, and found evidence that humans and human relatives ate starchy plant foods long before supermarkets existed. Tiny traces on teeth show that ancient meals were more mixed than the cartoon version. Roots and tubers may not sound exciting, but they are powerful survival foods. They can grow underground where animals cannot easily eat them first. They can provide energy. They can be shared. And when cooked, many become softer, safer, and easier to digest. This is where fire changed everything. Richard Wrangham, a biological anthropologist, famously argued that cooking helped shape human evolution because cooked food gives the body easier access to calories. The basic point is simple. A tough root, a small animal, or leftover scraps become more useful when heat breaks them down. So when the big hunt failed, fire still mattered. Fire turned poor options into better options. It made tough things softer, some foods safer, and gathered people in one place where food knowledge could be shared. The ancient meal was not just food, it was information. Someone had to know what to pick, what to avoid, how to prepare it, and when to stop eating it. The people who remembered these details were just as important as the people who could throw a spear. This is the part modern life often forgets. We admire the dramatic provider, the hunter, the person who brings back the big prize. But survival also depends on people who notice small things, remember patterns, test carefully, and keep the group alive during ordinary days. Because ordinary days are most of life. A successful hunt might feed everyone for a while, but you cannot build a species on lucky days only. You need fallback foods, shared memory, flexible behavior, and people who can survive the boring middle between big wins. And that is where ancient humans were surprisingly modern. They improvised. They mixed foods. They used what was available. They did not need every meal to be perfect. They needed enough. Enough energy to walk tomorrow. Enough food for children to sleep. Enough warmth to rest. Enough trust to stay together. Enough knowledge to try again. Now compare that to today. You can stand in front of a refrigerator full of food and still feel like there is nothing to eat. You can scroll through hundreds of delivery options and feel more stressed, not less. You can have more calories than any ancient human could imagine, yet feel confused about what your body wants. That is the strange modern reversal. Ancient humans had fewer options, but the question was clear. What will keep us alive today? Modern humans have endless options, but the question becomes blurry. What should I want? What should I avoid? Is this healthy? Is this cheap? Is this impressive? Is this comforting? Is this wrong? Your ancient brain was built for scarcity, not infinite menus. It was built to notice rare sweetness, value dense calories, and feel excitement when food appeared. That made sense when fruit was seasonal and honey was hard to find. But today, the same brain faces bright packages, delivery apps, and choices that never end. So the ancient problem was hunger. The modern problem is confusion. But the old lesson is still useful. When there was nothing to hunt, ancient humans did not freeze because the perfect food was missing. They widened their attention. They looked lower, smaller, quieter, and closer. They trusted memory. They trusted the group. They accepted that survival often comes from humble things. Not the giant animal, the root in the dirt, the egg in the nest, the shell by the water, the berry on the branch. The small food that did not look like much but kept everyone moving. Maybe that is the real answer. Ancient humans survived failed hunts because they were not only hunters, they were observers, gatherers, rememberers, experimenters, storytellers, people who turned landscapes into maps and small discoveries into dinner. So the next time you open a full fridge and say there is nothing to eat, remember the older version of that feeling. Picture the quiet day after the hunt failed. Picture hungry people looking around carefully. Picture someone kneeling in the dirt, pulling up a root. And picture the group surviving, not because they found something impressive, but because they knew what to eat when there was nothing to hunt.